in a 38-0 blowout. Most people don't care about this touchdown run by Marshawn Lynch.
It's 9 points for my fantasy team right there.
Fantasy football owners like Drew Colt are the exception. Yards gained and touchdowns scored in real life translate to success in fantasy football. But this alternate reality is also changing the way people approach the real game.
I'm a Panthers fan, so I'm always watching the Panthers game. But ever since I started playing fantasy football, I've watched a lot more games with other teams, especially ones that my players, are playing for, because I want to cheer for my players.
ESPN.com says about 30 million people play fantasy football, spending about 10 hours a week looking at their lineup.
You may have a player on one team and a player on another team, so you're just literally cheering for those two players and hoping that certain players that you might be playing against don't get points. So it's just really weird. It's a really weird situation.
To play fantasy football, you don't need one of these. Just any computer will do. And some people are even using it as a way to stay in touch with friends that don't live nearby. Drew shares his league with Sam Weinmiller, who lives all the way in Florida. The two often Skype to catch up and talk about their fantasy football matchups.
There's some folks in a couple of my fantasy leagues that I don't live near, and I definitely talk to them on fantasy football or interact with them through fantasy football more than I do in any other way.
The fantasy game is changing the way people act in real life. But for Drew, he's just happy of another way to stay in touch. Nathan Caniff-Kuhn, Carolina News.
The highest scoring player last week, and it was a defense.